program under MOU, right? And MOU with Pollachi College. And this is, as a first step, we are planning to give a lecture, and we have two distinguished speakers here. Now, before we go further, I would like to begin my welcome address with a thanks and welcome note to the principal who has been behind this important work. Without his persuasion, I don't think this MOU would have been possible. So we, before NAAC, he actually persuaded us to do this, and we have gone ahead, and I should in fact thank Dr. Binu Masters also for this, and who took a lot of effort to bring this about. And so that is, it is nice that it has materialized, and today we have this program. I'm really very happy about it. And I should also, after this, I would like to go on to welcome the distinguished speakers. I would like to just, because we have Dr. Rita here, retired associate professor of our own department. She is here to introduce them. So I would rather give the job to her. But before that, I would like to say a little about our guests. Just a minute. Dr. Belu Mehra, I would like to welcome her. I would like to say that she's a very distinguished speaker, very qualified to speak on the topic. You know why? Because she has got a PhD in education from University of Illinois, right, USA, and she has a master's in economics from Delhi School of Economics. So either way, right, she could talk about India and culture, very qualified to talk about that. And she has done, she has specialized in Aurobindo studies. And she has published a number of books. With this, I will introduce, I'll leave the job of introducing her to Dr. Rita. And Madam, you are very welcome, and we are very eager to listen to you. And Dr. Gayatri Majumdar, as we all know, we have seen her also on 2 occasions. And I would like to, she is a writer, editor and speaker, specialized in Sri Aurobindo, and she has also published a lot of books, and she has specialized also in writing about Pondicherry. And she has in fact, done a lot to Pondicherry, I should say, Pondicherry creative writing. She is the co-founder of Pondicherry Poets, right? And she has also been the chief editor of the Brown, right? The journal Brown Critic for over 2 decades. Madam, you are very welcome. And I would like the guests to, I would also like to welcome people from Pollachi College. Welcome, sir, and welcome, dear students. This is a very interesting enterprise. Now our students can meet them and they can meet us. I think this morning itself our boys found out of what kind of college they have and all that, and they said it's a private college, this and that. So this kind of interaction has been really interesting, and I welcome them, and I hope to have more programs like this, and we hope to visit your college, sir. So you're very welcome. And a little bit of self-praise, please bear with us. I would like to say how our department people have been working towards this program, starting from, as I told you, Dr. Binu, who organized this, and Dr. Rita, right, who is also behind this program so much. She asked us to meet Dr. Gayatri Majumdar, and then we also planned the meeting. So thank you very much, Rita, for this. You are very welcome. We are very happy to have you here. And I want to add one more to this point to this. Right from the first minute when we were talking about this, our department people are very enthusiastic about it, and then the banner was ready in a minute, the invitation was ready in a minute, and people were taking up work, right? So I welcome my department people, my and my colleagues from the computer department. You are very welcome, madam, both of you, and I welcome all the other department people who are here, and my dear students, right, who are behind the whole program. Now our students are really growing up. I can see how they have grown up in the recent programs and in the recent years. They take up so many things, organized wonderfully, and before my retirement I am able to see that I am so very happy. I welcome everyone for this program. I welcome the people who have come along with you, and the press people also, people from Ashram. Sir, you are welcome. And I welcome Dr. Shankaran sir, retired lecturer from Kendriya Vidyalaya. It is an interesting thing that he came here, he saw the title and he wanted to attend this. Sir, you are very welcome. We are honored. Right. I welcome everyone to this program. Thank you one and all. And over to the program.
Thank you, sir. With great enthusiasm, we move on to the much anticipated segment of today's program. Let's embark on a journey of insightful dialogue, thought-provoking perspectives, and invaluable learning. The vibrant speakers we have with us today are luminaries whose works have paved the path for progressive ideas. Today they are here to enlighten us on the topic Understanding India, its art and culture, a topic of immense relevance in our current times. There is an air of expectancy as we wait for profound revelation, inspiring stories, and impactful wisdom. It's our honor to invite the speakers to illuminate our minds and inspire our hearts. I request Dr. Rita Tgasc to introduce the speakers. Dr. Rita does not need any special introduction. She is a writer of distinct vision, a fountainhead of illuminating ideas, an idol of knowledge and experience, a seasoned scholar, and an inspiration to all. Dr. Rita.
At the outset, please allow me to express my deep gratitude to this great institution. It was set up in 1961. It was the birth centenary of Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, and also in a very, very humble way, the speaker here was born in that year. So I think that the day I stepped into this institution way back in 1997, I thought there is an occult link, a spiritual link between me and this institution. I was destined to come here. So I thank the principal for his vision, for his dynamism, for promoting interaction between individuals, between scholars, among institutions, and that is one of the best ways of enriching our intellectual life. I thank my department, I thank Dr. Kala, Binu Marcus, Anju, all the members who have expressed their solidarity with me in different times, and also have given me this opportunity to speak today on this occasion. And it is my great pleasure, my privilege to introduce the speakers today. And I begin with Gayatri Majumdar, who is the first speaker. So let me introduce her. She is editor, publisher, and founder of the critically acclaimed Indian literary journal called the Brown Critic for over 2 decades. And through this medium, through this forum, she published hundreds of established and emerging poets from India and other countries. And not only this, she's such a multifaceted personality. Her career also encompasses leadership in the publishing industry and work in NGOs. She was also assistant editor of the Indian Pen, PEN, and was a freelancer radio jockey at All India Radio in Mumbai. She has to her credit 7 books. The first is a novel, A Song for Bella. Then she has 4 poetry books. Shout, that is the title of her book, the first book, poetry book. Second is I Know You Are Here. Third one is The Dream Pod. Fourth is A Warm Place with No Memory. And non-fiction category we have The Lotus of the Heart. And she has also Brown Critic Home Anthology as co-editor and contributor. Her poems and prose passages and works have been published in major journals and anthologies and featured in some of the most prominent journals and magazines, newspapers, both in India and abroad. And she is on the review committee of the Yearbook of Indian Poetry 2022, and her poems are a part of Converse, Pippa Rand Poetry Anthology, UK. Now, later in 2024, I mean this year, the year is still going on, her work will be included in a few major anthologies, including a new anthology featuring 20 major Indian poets writing in English. Then the anthology, Presenters of River Road Reading Series, USA, and an anthology of the contemporary English poets translated into Hindi by Rekha Sethi for publication by an eminent Hindi publisher, Vani Prakashan, New Delhi. She is currently working on her next non-fiction title apart from a poetry collection. As co-founder of Pondicherry Poets, Gayatri has been curating the annual Pondicherry Orville Poetry Festival over the past 7 years. Apart from hosting and participating in a number of literary, music, sustainable tourism events in Pondicherry and across India, she curated a 7-day residential Wings of Spirit literary music festival in Nainital in the Himalayas. Then she also has a YouTube channel, the Brown Critic Gayatri Majumdar YouTube channel, which features poets and musicians regularly. Meanwhile, Brown Critic Books, her small but a very unique and visionary publishing house, has been publishing a handful of mostly non-fiction titles over the past few years. There are a lot of eminent critics who have spoken very highly of her poetry, and they have said that there runs a typical combination of myth and imageries merged in daily life's trivial incidents, which one would not even think to merge with nature's little events or any mystical rhythm of life. And Now, apart from all this, let me just add something she doesn't have here. The Department of Art and Culture, Government of Pondicherry, has been has been a beneficiary of our books. They have nominated 2 of our poetry books for purchase for their library. So 56 copies of one poetry book and 56 copies of the other poetry book, the Dream Pod and the other one. So this is a feather in her cap, one more feather in her cap. And with this, she becomes an even more integral part of Pondicherry's cultural and intellectual life. Okay, so with this, I request Dr. Gayatri to speak to the audience, to present her paper. Can you hear me? Thank you, Rita, for that kind introduction. And I've been closely associated with Rita, and I thank her, Dr. Kala ma'am, Binu, and the principal here, and all of you present for this lovely morning where we can talk about a little bit of poetry, I'm sure, which must be close to your heart. Because I believe you're all English literature students? Yes. So how many of you write poetry? No one? Oh, that's great. So I'm expecting you to read out your poems as well sometime during this. Okay? So I'll just begin here. So this is so I'm supposed to talk about myself, which is a little rare thing because I have been conducting, events mostly for others, and I rarely, come in the front. I try to do everything from behind. So it took me a little while to put all this together and try to remember what I did. So I think my poetic, and I'll focus mostly on poetry here, my association over the years. And I began early writing, and there were books of Pushkin and Emily Dickinson, if you've heard of her, the American poet. So the American poet, and of course our very own Rabindranath Tagore, after which you all, are closely known to him. And then poets like Anna Akhmatova, Aga Shahid Ali, who's more of a contemporary poet, whom I also featured in Brown Critique, which is my magazine which I've been publishing for over 2 decades. I started in Mumbai, so this is how it used to come out. It was a quarterly, and I have many issues that came out. This is a nostalgia issue with a lovely painting by Ganesh Pine. He's a contemporary artist from Bengal, and he kindly gave me this cover.
So, I began writing, you write poetry in the beginning mostly as a cathartic act, trying to figure life out and trying to control things and look at, life with different lens because, sometimes things are not in your favor or you feel victimized. So that's probably how it began. But then later, after St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, I moved to Mumbai. Sorry, in Kolkata I studied in St. Xavier's College. Then I moved to Mumbai after my studies and did a journalism course. So I began as a journalist really, and I started in this news agency called Press Trust of India. Have you heard of PTI or Press Trust of India, which is our news agency? And it used to be very robust in those days because there was hardly any other presence for any kind of news in those days. And then I moved on to various, work in newspapers and magazines. But specifically, I worked with Professor Nizim Ezekiel, who is supposed to be the father of Indian writing in English, and I helped him, assisted him in bringing out PEN magazine, which is poetry, essays, novels. And it's a very prestigious magazine which goes around in the world, and he was the editor. He was head of department, Mumbai University, English head of department in those days. And then I ventured into, I used to be in a group called Poetry Circle, which became very renowned, and we had got very well-known poets, and we had Aga Shahid Ali, Arundhati Subramaniam, Jerry Pinto, Ranjit Hoskot, a little group. We meet regularly, and we kind of learned from there, went from there, and I kind of started the Brown Critique. And remember, in those days, in around mid-95, there was no Facebook, there was no social media, there was practically nothing. So the Brown Critique was one of those few magazines then, maybe a handful you could count on your fingers, and that really created some kind of ripple because a lot of poets, we had so much talent, and I got so many poets writing in English. I also featured art and other non-fiction, some fiction. Ashoka Mitran, I remember, I had published one of his short stories he had sent me. So that's how the magazine started, and it went well for almost a couple of decades. It had different avatars, then I had a blog and I did a YouTube channel. But those were the heydays of Brown Critic, and I think I showed you, this is one of the first probably magazine that came out in a little, and I remember doing everything, selecting the paper, designing the whole thing, and this is PEN, which is the other magazine which Professor Ezekiel. Have you heard of Professor Ezekiel? Do they have it in his? Okay, I think The Night of the Scorpion is one of his very well-known poems. So that's how it began. And then somebody should keep the time because let me just. Okay. And then Poetry Circle I talked about. My first book was published in 2000 called Shout, which came out. I believe, but some people like some poems from there. But I believe that was more of a cathartic, thing that came out in the beginning. And then I attended some events in Rome and Washington, D.C. They call me. Especially Rome, it was like they call women poets and some Indian women poets, including Mira Alexander, who was also there in those days. I went with Arundhati Subramaniam there, so we represented Indian writing in English as women. And then I started publishing, Brown Critic started publishing a few poetry volumes, which later I thought I abandoned, but I had major books come out of well-known poets called Vinita Agarwal, Praveen Nair, Smita Agarwal, Godavari, K. Srilata, who teaches in Chennai, IIT Chennai, or she's just taken retirement, and Nayantara and others. And then of course I began a blog in 2010, where again I had really good contributors, coming. And these were, some of them were absolutely unknown poets. Like, you know, you could send me a poem and I would probably not reject. You know, there were first timers, but there were also established poets. So can we move on to that? And then there were 7 books which happened, but I wrote Pondicherry here in the beginning because Pondicherry is a magical place for me. I came here 10 years ago and everything happened. The good stuff that was supposed to happen in my life happened after coming to Pondicherry. That's why it's magic. So I had my book, A Song for Bela, published. That was one of my first books. And Anu Mazumdar, she's part of the Oracle, yes, she wrote a little introduction to it. And then my books, I Know You Are Here, was published in 2019 by Red River, which is a fabulous publishing house based out of New Delhi. Dibbajyoti Sharma, he does a really good job with all the books. And then Sarabjit Garcha of Copper Coin brought out my next book called The Dream Pod, which is a really interesting cover to it. And my most recent book, published last year, is A Warm Place with No Memory, which also got good reviews. I've put some links to the reviews that appeared by some prominent critics. And then, yes, I brought out a book that this is the aftermath of COVID, called The Lotus of the Heart. So, do you remember COVID at all, or it's just gone out of your memory now? Do you remember what happened during COVID? Did you attend classes in those days? Online classes, I guess. So we were stuck in the house, so I wrote this Lotus of the Heart because when you're alone, you get a little more information, you get a little more, you know, about the world and spirituality. You, in fact, connect more sometimes when you withdraw a little bit from life. So that is what is the product of this book. And then I also did home anthology because remember we had to stay at home and we were stuck at home, and it was the slogan was, tagline was stay home, stay safe. So we wondered what the meaning of home is. You know what home means to you. Is it really a safe place? What happens? Why do we get out of home? Why do we come back? So all these ideas were explored by 50 major poets, and including many of them from the US, like Carolyn Wright, Prema Vishwanathan, and major Indian poets, Abhay K. and Sanjeev Sethi and everyone else. So that was one of the highlights. So can we move on to the next slide, please? Yes. So I'll just put up some of the whole anthology on top, which was designed, the cover was designed by my colleague Kavita. And then we launched I Know You're Here, Warm Place. And this is Victor Banerjee. I don't know whether you know him as an actor. He's a Bengali and Hindi and English actor. He's acted in Ivory Merchant. So I was in Dehradun to do some work with him. So he kindly released my book personally. And the Dream Pod, we did a Mumbai launch in the press club in Dream Pod. Next slide. So again, as I said, Pondicherry is a magical place, and when I came here, after a couple of years, my colleague, poet and colleague Anju Makhija from Mumbai, she kind of floated this idea about starting a festival because, you know, Pondicherry as a place is so unique. And we wanted to bring our poets and others to Pondicherry and bring the poets to Pondicherry in the sense we wanted to showcase their work to Pondicherrians as well. So we started this Pondicherry festival and we began at Adi Shakti. You know Adi Shakti in Auroville, where a lot of theatre happens. Yeah, so we started at Adi Shakti, the first, which you see on the right side. That is Kala Ramesh, who is a haiku person who writes a lot of haiku and does a lot of workshop. So that's where we started, and then we do a lot of our festival events are hosted at Unity Pavilion, Palade Mahe in Pondicherry, Tasmai Art Gallery, which is also a very good venue for us. Then Aura, which is our own SREE Aurobindo Society's little event room that we have. So that's what we started, and we are going strong. Next year we plan, this year I just skipped it because of many other commitments. We plan to do it at a place called Sharanam, which is near the lake. It's beautiful, and we want to do a residential. So all of you are welcome. I'll share the posters and everything with Binu ma'am and others, and you please come and join, and if you'd like to be associated and read your poems maybe, that would also be wonderful. And then I curate other music programs, and I've done one in Madhuban, as Rita ma'am said, and at Shanti Gardens in Mumbai again we had some Tagore songs being sung there, which is associated with Sri Aurobindo Society where I am now. And then we did Tagore's birth anniversary at Matriniketan. This is a heritage building in Pondicherry. Any of you heard of it? Matriniketan, it's an old heritage building which has been renovated by NAAC. You heard? Ah, you've been there. You went there the last time with Binu ma'am and everyone. Okay. Oh, youth camp. Oh, okay. Oh, you were part of the Oro youth camp, some of them? Okay. Oh, okay. So, you know how beautiful that building is. In fact, we hosted Rita ma'am, Binu ma'am, and a lot of other poets, local, both in Tamil and in English, at Matriniketan. So that's what we did. But for this specifically, we celebrated Tagore's birthday with a lot of Rabindra Sangeet, as you know, it's called in Bengali. And then I was associated with the Pondicherry Heritage Festival, where I think you read. Lily ma'am also read, and it was really wonderful. And then finally I conduct or curate or try to be a part of a lot of book launches in various places in Pondicherry, Palade Mahe, Pondicherry, Aura, and Oxford Bookstore. So at this stage, I had thought I will just read one or two of my poems, because I'm talking so much about stuff I knew, but you should know what the poems are really about. So do I have your permission to read my poem? And I expect a couple of you to read your poems as well, a little later. You've got your poems with you? Okay, thank you. So this is from the Dream Pod, and it's called Bodh Gaya, Summer 2019. For some reason, a lot of people like this poem, so I thought I'll read it for you all as well. I must be in Bodh Gaya, the road leading to it, replete with Buddhas, Buddha Toyota, Buddha Resort, and Buddhahood. Instantaneously, I transmorph, disappear when the tree bends to bless me. I become the tree, and the rest, they say, is history. As clouds drift past remembered breeze, I turn to look back to see if all this is real. This cannot be, for there is no one ambulating the lotus path. Only a large brass, silent mind, singing bowl serves now as the bhikshu's only refuge. What's with these Thai, Vietnamese, Bhutanese monks and nuns that make dogs, rivers restful and sleep? I squat with dogged remembrance a few meters from where they say Shakyamuni sat to meditate. But the world resurfaces as if with a vengeance. So much artifact in emptiness. It can be distracting. So much labor surrounding impermanence. I see my father's twinkle in a young monk's eye as he hands me a fallen peepal leaf for keeps, saying, "You're special," or something to that effect. I think of rebirths, turquoise bones, rainbow bodies, returning my father's smile on a May afternoon in Bodh Gaya. Who knew I would meet him? These etchings on stones, wood, leaves humming in the hot breeze, bhikkhus in saffron suffering, arguing mostly about food and survival, stupas and long queues of bodhisattvas, make-believes solidify every notable step, every breath, and yet the tree will remain unmoved in Bodh Gaya. Thank you so much. So that was my trip to Bodh Gaya. So I'm hoping the overall topic of this morning, I've been able, I want to believe that I'm able to contribute a little bit in the overall art and culture and literature of contemporary India, and I'm sure you're the future of that as well. I will not read many of my poems because I want to focus on other things, but I'll just finish off with a poem that I have here. That's what I said. The next poetry festival will be in Sharana. It will be more international in the sense we'll have a lot of neighboring countries representatives like Sri Lanka, hopefully Bangladesh, I'm not sure how that will work out, Nepal, and so on. So it'll be, so as I've invited all of you, please come if you want to be a part of it, maybe volunteer or be with the poets. I will send all the material across. So there's a poem which I wrote a few days ago, and I thought because the poems, sometimes it meanders and takes different turns. So Pondicherry has had a different effect of me after reading Sri Aurobindo's poems. And also I wanted to mention I was very influenced by Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi's poems as well. If you've heard of him, Jalaluddin Rumi, the mystic Persian. So I've been influenced, and so things change, as you change, your perception of how the world is changes, and it comes out sometimes in poetry. And so this is a poem a little different, not really what I mentioned just now, but it's called Losing the Game. In those hours of reason and frantic cuckoo calls, I slip into a hole of completion, empty of words to fill my glass, stumbling at the sidewalks of what I actually meant to say, but like unformed fetuses, they drop me as if by the ditch. I smile at the enormity of the silly endings with their instantaneous release egging me on. Are you even listening to me? I gasp. No, she answers. It's really of little or no interest. And I bawl, frozen, trying to recall the name of that guy on TV with his James Bond Irish jaws. Oh, you know that one. I try so hard to create an impression. I have to let her know it's of tremendous consequence, what I meant to let her know. But she... The rain outside washes the entire tale forming around my mouth in a single flash of light. Everything could go dark. So this poem I call my senior moment poem. When something, some of us seniors as we are, sometimes we don't remember something, and in an instant it just goes away. And so people may shake their heads and say, so sad, it must be dementia setting in or something. But I believe that it's a good thing, to forget sometimes. So I kind of put a poem around this senior moment, which I call. There's a last poem which I'll read, and then I'll go on to a little bit of other things. It's called Gaming. I've been writing a bit about gaming because I think it's gameplay that we do. Gaming. I slip through the backrest of my mind, landing at the backyard of an ancient system of arrivals. Supporting me are aquarium fantooths, easterly blue breeze from a lost marinas, sea, other flashes of enlightening, where hibiscus wait for time to stumble onto their red fluffy hearts, going, ah. Creepers, as in Jack's beanstalk, are transported amidst the silence of stars. It's a long way from anywhere. Pretensions of hide and seek, falling apart in the click of an eye. And so the game continues in ancient chambers of no exists, of those rusty dream trappings. So thank you. That would be my contribution to the poetry sector. Some of these books are available elsewhere. If anyone wants to get a hold of them, you can. Can we move on to this? Yeah. So as I was saying, I have also been attending. Since I came to Pondicherry, I'm in actually a very good place, safe place. I call Pondicherry my home now. I don't want to be a part of the larger at this time, although I am, I'm invited, but I don't want to be involved in groupisms of, poets and all that. So I like being in Pondicherry, and whenever an opportunity comes, I don't proactively go out to be part of anything, but I've been invited to the FOSFL, the Foundation of SARC Writers and Literary Festival in Delhi every year for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, which is coming in November now. So I attend that, where I meet a lot of our neighbor poets from Sri Lanka and elsewhere as well. And then, if anybody wants to stop me and ask me anything, please do that, okay? So, and then I was at Mathrubhumi Literature Festival in Trivandrum, Kerala. I attended with Gopi Krishnan Kuttur, who organized that poetry section. And recently, this year, Glasshouse Festival, Poetry Festival in Bangalore. I'm going to be a part of Yarkod Poetry Festival this October, which surprisingly will be held in Pondicherry. So I'll send across the news of that. If you all want to attend, it will be in Pondicherry area. And finally, book launches, as I said, I've done in Press Club, and that is Ashish Nandi. He is one of our foremost sociologists. So he kind of held up my book in one of those FOSFL festivals. And that is the Bangalore Festival. Next slide, please. So, this poetic journey, as I said, I've been featured in most major, Rita did mention a few, and the Big Bridge Book of Contemporary Indian Poetry, which came out recently as a volume, and then Borderless Journal in Singapore. Vitali Chakrabarti is the editor. She took quite a few of my poems. There was an anthology called Rasoi. I don't know if any of you know Hindi. Rasoi is kitchen. So how do you write a poem about cooking and kitchen and put it together? So that was a part of that. And then Converse Contemporary English Poetry by Indians. This was published on the 75th anniversary of Indians' independence by Paper and Books. And then New Anthology, which is just forthcoming. It should come out any moment now. And then Hibiscus, which was published by Adu Mazumdar via Hawakal, poems that heal and empower. Then there's a thing called Drike, Planet Number 1, which comes out from Scotland. Sanjeev Sethi had taken some of my shorter poems. And then the Kali Project anthology by Candice Lewis. She took some poems. Direct Path is a journal that is published by Raman Ashram in New Delhi. There's one here called Mountain Path in Tiruvannamalai, but this was in New Delhi one, where my poem Communion Union came out. And then Contemporary English Poets translated, as Rita ma'am mentioned, translated by Rekha Sethi. Setu Journal publishes quite a few of my poems. It's a bilingual journal in India and US. And Scent of Rain, this is Jayanta Mahapatra's, remembering Jayanta Mahapatra. He's one of our foremost poets, who passed away early this year, mid this year. So he was also nominated for the Nobel, Literature. He's based out of Orissa. And Open Your Eyes on Climate Change, which was edited by Vinita Agarwal, and most recently, a young person reached out to me for Talk of the Town, an anthology of poems of Indian city, published by Penguin Random House. So these are some, there are many others, but these are more recent, so that's why I featured them. Before we move on to this slide, can you, even Lily and Binu ji, ma'am, if you have some poems, if you can, because I want this to be, because I want others to be a part of everything. Yes, do you have anything?
No, I have not drawn, madam.
Oh, I did tell Binu, do you have something?
We want to listen to you.
Yeah.
No, but I want at least one or two of them to come and read. Come.
Madam, it will be delightful to hear the students present.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Platform is meant for you. You take your hand, madam. You introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Good morning all. I'm Kritika from BA English 3rd year. Now I'm going to present a poem on marigold. In gardens bathed in golden light, marigolds bloom, a vibrant sight with petal kissed by dawn's embrace. They dance with grace in nature's face. Their fury hers a bliss of gold, a story of resilience told. Through sun and rain, they boldly thrive. In fields and pots, they come alive. Amidst the green, they proudly stand, a beacon bright in every land. Their fragrance whispers tales untold of loves and hope in petals bold. So let us cherish marigold bloom, a symbol of joy that banishes gloom. In gardens, fields, or pots so neat, their radiant beauty in ever sweet.
Oh, nice.
Thank you for the poem. I also exploration of the flower. You mentioned the various nuances of the flowers. Does your friend have a poem, or he's serving tea? Do you have a poem? No? Come. The other person doesn't have a poem? Okay, so
good evening to all. My name is Good morning to all. My name is Nirmala. I'm from BA English, final year. Actually, I'm going to listen to it. Sorry. I'm going to talk about the poem. I read it by myself. The sunrise. Actually, the sunflower. I'm going to say a poem about the sunflower. The sunrise and set by its own, but you still bloom with a hope. You are glowing like the sun. For a second, I forgot that you are my sunflower. You hold the flower with a thin stem, but you never give up to stand straight. The burning rays of the sun can even stole your petals' freshness. The memorizing light come from your petals, make me confused, it's gold or diamond. Oh my dear sunflower, the vibrant color of yours, always given a bright smile to my lips. I will be your sand to hold you in a heavy wind. The band of you and me are stronger like the sand and wood. The stars are jealous of sun because it can be with you in the morning sky. Even in the end of your life, you're giving a things that could be worth of. In the world full of rose, you are my sunflower. Thank you.
thank you so much. I love that both the poems were on flowers because now we are moving to Sri Aurobindo and the mothers a little bit. I don't know whether it was there in my bio, but I am now associated with Sri Aurobindo Society. and I handle the publications department called Oro Publications. I edit almost all of them, and I also, we've started a lot of work on audiobooks and ebooks because that's the trend. Do you all read ebooks and audiobooks? I'm sure you must be doing that. So we've taken up a lot of audiobooks, and one of the audiobooks, I'll just tell you, is called Light of Lights. It's an anthology of spiritual poetry, which mostly by Sri Aurobindo, as well as there were a lot of poets in the ashram who were around, very accomplished poets. So, but this one was the one, it's an audio book where many of us lent our voice reciting this poem. And the one which, if you can click that, that's called The Divine Worker, that little icon on top. That's called Divine Worker by Sri Aurobindo. There's no what? There's no
audio.
There's no audio.
Audio.
Okay. So that's a shame. Maybe I can send it across.
File probably has not been linked.
It's embedded. If you click on it.
Yeah. It shows symbol, but there's no audio for the.
Oh, there's no audio coming. Oh, okay. Okay. Let me see if I can do it from here, because I thought, that's a little change that started happening from after reading Sri Aurobindo's poems, because that's future poetry by Sri Aurobindo, and it's a birth-centered movie. And I'll just see if I can click it from here. No, there is no. Okay, I'll send it with Dr. Beenu, and you can listen to it later, or you can download it. It's available for free on Oro Publications website, and you can download the entire audiobook and listen to it. And then recently I went to Dehradun to get one audiobook curated with Victor Banerjee, who you saw. And this is called A Glimpse of Sri Aurobindo's Life Through His Poems, compiled by Dr. Alok Pandey, who is a very renowned person in the ashram. And so he kind of read a lot of Sri Aurobindo's poems, and that was also a highlight of the audiobook venture that we've stepped into. And here is something called Sri Aurobindo's Action, and I recently, I'll leave some copies with here. And this one is on bhakti poetry. You've heard of bhakti movement in India? So not just poetry, but the bhakti proponents, the people involved in bhakti through the various stages. And many of them were actually poets, and they wrote abhangs like Akka Mahadevi. You've heard of these people, and Tukaram, and even a lot of poets got into that bhakti phase. Probably, if you read the journal, which I'll leave, probably against the oppression that was going on in those days. So it was a kind of revolt. But what came out of them was this pure bliss and love, actually. Even if it was, kind of a rebellion against the system that prevailed in those days. So this is Sri Aurobindo's Action, which is a very popular journal in Pondicherry. And I also edit their journals every month. And then I read with Belu. We had gone to early last year, 2023, at Bhama retreat. So this is what the exploration, and I read a paper called Appreciating Sri Aurobindo's Poetry, because it is slightly different. You have to, really get into it. And although if you read his poems, I wish I could have this up. If you read his poems, there is nothing complicated. It will take you directly to some other zone. But what goes behind it, what the thing that is needed to get there, is a process. So that's what we kind of explore. And the next poetic journey, if I have any more. So I also wanted to, let you know how Sri Aurobindo was very closely associated with Subramanya Bharati, the other great nationalist and poet. Many of you probably know his poems both in English and Tamil. And I'll just read out the first bit. This is, he did some research into the origin of Aryan speech, and Sri Aurobindo made a brief study of Tamil in Pondicherry around 1910-12. That's the time he came away from Kolkata and Chandanagar. A few years later, the poet Subramanya Bharati, who like Sri Aurobindo, was a political refugee in the French colony, introduced Sri Aurobindo to the works of the medieval Vaishnava saints known as Alvars. You probably know Alvars, and helping him translate some of their poems into English and providing him with material to enable him to write prefatory essays on the poets. Bharati also may have helped Sri Aurobindo in his translations from the Kural. In fact, whenever I hold poetry festivals, I feature Kurals both in the original Tamil as well as English, and he also translated Andal, as some of you may know. He translated 3 of her poems called To the Cuckoo, I Dreamed a Dream, and Ye Others. It's available online, you can read them. And the 3 translations of the Kural, I just love the way Sri Aurobindo translated them. So if you permit me, I'll just read them here. The first one is, Alpha of all letters, the first, of the world's the original Godhead, the beginning. That's the first Kural. He's translated quite a few. Second, what fruit is by learning if thou adore not the beautiful feet of the master of luminous wisdom? Third one, when man has reached the majestic feet of him whose walk is on flowers, long upon earth is his living. So how beautifully and precisely he's translated these Kurals to bring out the meaning and mode of it. So I've always admired Subramanya Bharati and a lot of other Tamil poets and Tamil literature, but to know that they were so closely associated and they had the same vision is really, heartening to know. So, are there any more slides? So, Rita alluded to the fact that I also have been bringing out books. I've been publishing books, and these are just a handful, and some are featured here. So one of them is this book called Songs of the Deep by Harvinder Kaur. It's a non-fiction, mostly philosophical. These are also 4 books, and I'm also proud to say I published a fiction book of Dr. Rita Navkeshri very recently, and that has also been accepted by Arts and Culture Department. So my association with her is really quite strong. This is another book which I haven't featured here called It's Uncomplicated, and it's really a bestseller by Nitya Swarupa, another local writer and poet in Pondicherry, and it's really selling well. And the next book of Nitya's is called Curiosity Saves the Thinker, and she comes from a very original space, and some of you we have the books in a few, like Spider Books it used to be called, and then Focus, and Aura Bookstore, Netaji Bookstore as well, which have the books for sale there. And this is one of contemporary Indian poets called Vishnupada Ray, one of the later poets that I kind of published. So that was and we have the YouTube channel which you can visit, and if some of you would like to take part, that is also welcome. Maybe you can set up a small group, and from time to time you can read your poems or even other poets, both in English, Tamil, or any other language of your preference. I think that is more or less the end. So I have to, really this is a great honor for me, and I don't see Dr. Sasikanta, the principal does. But first, to begin with, I'd like to thank, and also mostly the faculty and students of Tagore Government Arts and Science and Sri SARASWATHY THYAGARAJA College, Pollachi. Thank you for coming and making this happen. It's a really, honor and pleasure to be with you all. It's always good to have such young minds, active minds with us. And of course, Kala, Dr. A. Kala, without her, this wouldn't have been possible at all, ma'am. Thank you for having us. Dr. Binu Marcus, she's been very, very active and instrumental in, bringing us here. And Dr. Lily Arul Sharmila, of course, she's also been associated, for a long time with the work that we've been doing. And I'd like to especially thank Dr. Rita Natkeshri for initiating this. And she's also a good friend, a really marvelous human being. And thank you all. So I hope you enjoyed this session. Anybody who has any questions or anything like that? Anybody wants to talk about his or her favorite poem in any language, English? Who can tell me something about a favorite poet? Anybody has a favorite poet? Like maybe Shelley, Keats, or Indian poets. Bharatidasan. Does he write poetry? Yes. So, anybody would like to say something? I can see your smiles, but you can also talk, I'm sure. Huh? Bharatidasan, would you like to say something, sir?
Good morning, everybody. I think I may get another chance to stand before you. No, because she invited me, I am here for a minute or two. We just heard and traveled with the great journey in poetry of Dr. Gayatri. Really, it was very fascinating, very encouraging, and very much motivating all of you to get into the ocean of poetry. She asked about some poet. And I am happy about this Kritika and the other girl's name. I didn't hear well. Am I clear to you all? Voice is clear? Language is clear? Okay. So, when I was listening to her, my pen ran on the pages of a book. This is also a poetic way of presentation. This is only to tell you, writing poem is her pride and our jealousy, one side. And other side, on the other side, it's not at all any hard for anyone who knows the language, who knows the vocabulary. So when she was going on, my pen was going on, running on the page of my diary. This is a way of poetic presentation. It is just my entry here an accident. Repeat. It is just my entry here an accident. Of course, I have many a precedent. So we remember when writing poem, poetic piece, in Tamil, Edugai Mone comes. In English, it's a rhyming. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that, or 1, 4, 2, 3, etc. The people in English department know very well. What a nice welcome surprise I got. What a nice welcome surprise I got. Surprising pleasure in was I caught. So this way, when mind goes well, see, imagination beyond reality is the road to write poems. Expression of emotion unbindingly is the route that we get success in that. One more, I am fond of English. I'm fond of composing too in English, Tamil, Hindi. And I got some experience and pleasure too. I was in a theatre. Half the way it is going through. Till that moment, I was fed up with that film while viewing. My mind caught some words in a poetic form perhaps. I just immediately pressed into my little pressure of pleasure for everyone, as everyone does. Ere I forget, that's the heading. Ere I forget, because after some time I'll forget the words, I'll forget my idea, I'll even wish to compose. Ere I forget. From beginning to end, I was seriously trying to understand whether was I able to understand. From beginning to end, I was seriously trying to understand whether I was able to understand anything until I understood at the end that I had understood what I got to understand. Thank you very much. I hereby, as a teacher, I encourage every one of you in the English department, as she told in other languages too, try to compose. It's only two things, as I told you, imagination beyond reality. The marigold made her imagine very well. She has put in such a way about the marigold. Congratulations. And other girls too. And expression of emotions unbinding, that is the second example of mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. As Sir said, for poetry composition, you need imagination and a pen and paper, really, and nothing else. So go for it. I'm sure, it'll bring you a lot of joy. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking us along your poetic journey, exploring and unearthing ideas, spiritual and philosophical and relevant to the times. And as your novel, A Song for Bela, has been rightly pointed out, it's an intriguing novel from a poet, and your exploration of ideas, even at the time of uncertainty, that is when uncertainty loomed large in the minds of the entire humanity during COVID. You are indeed a part of a beautiful culture, and your contribution to writing and your interest in multifarious activities related to art and culture speaks volumes. You are indeed an inspiration to all. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Research scholars at the higher education level, both in the US and in India. She is a recipient of several research grants and scholarships during her doctoral studies and her professorship, and she has several academic papers, presentations, and book chapters to her credit. So from economics to spirituality, let's see how that journey took shape. Dr. Mehra moved to Pondicherry in 2007 to focus on Sri Aurobindo's studies. She worked as faculty member and program coordinator at Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research, that is SAKAR, Pondicherry, for many years. She has been associated with Sri Aurobindo Society since 2016 in various capacities. She currently serves as Director, Bharat Shakti, a department which focuses on studies, research, and program development in the areas of Indian culture and integral yoga. She is also the editor of Renaissance, Society's online journal. Dr. Mehra researches, writes, and speaks regularly on topics related to education, yoga, culture, and society in the light of Sri Aurobindo. Over the past few years, she has published more than 25 articles in various publications and has delivered about 60 talks and presentations at various seminars, conferences, workshops, and other educational forums across the country. Dr. Mehra curates and organizes a variety of learning programs for people of diverse age groups and backgrounds, including talks, exhibitions, workshops, focused around various aspects of Sri Aurobindo's vision and works. She has organized several such programs with different departments of Pondicherry University, where she has also developed and taught semester-length master's level courses on various topics in the light of Sri Aurobindo's vision. She has also delivered talks at the invitation of various university departments. She currently serves as the nominated expert member in the Institutional Ethical Committee, within brackets Human Studies of Pondicherry University. 3 of her recent books, the first one is Understanding Contemporary India in the Light of Sri Aurobindo. The second one, Indian Literary Tradition in the Light of Sri Aurobindo. And the third one, Toward a New Renaissance Cultivating Soul Qualities, were published by Oro Publications in 2022 and 2023 respectively. Dr. Mehra is a regular writer and curator for Sri Aurobindo's Action, a journal of Indian resurgence, which was started by the mother in 1970. Her latest book, Antaryatra, Soul Journeys, will be available soon, it's in the press. She also writes for various other journals and magazines focusing on Sri Aurobindo studies, as well as several other publications on issues related to Indian education, culture, and society. Now, just one little point. I have often listened to her lectures, and she's a brilliant orator. You can immensely benefit from listening to her, and this is actually for the students. So please be as attentive as you were in the first half of the session. Okay, thank you so much. Over to Dr. Delima. I request her to speak to the audience.
Thank you, Dr. Rita, for this very kind and warm introduction. And thank you, Dr. Kala and Dr. Beenu, Dr. Lily, Dr. Anju, who also happens to be my neighbor. She and I always just meet here. We live so close to each other. We are so busy most of the time, reading, writing, doing whatever. So thank you so much for organizing this whole program and for making us part of your literary event. And thank you, Gayatri, for coordinating from our end everything. So when Gayatri told me that we need to come up with some topics that would be relevant, and then I think she discussed with you about what could be the possible ways, and also with you, Rita. So I thought I will start with a very broad topic, but I'll take it in a very general, introductory way, because this is something that we can spend our whole lifetime, and that is what my goal in my present lifetime is, to decolonize my mind, to decolonize my way of thinking. And for that, I have what I feel as the best teacher, the best guru, the best master for me, which is Sri Aurobindo. So, decolonizing Indian cultural studies with Sri Aurobindo. I can even frame it as my own journey, but I would rather just talk about it in a general, broad way, so that many of us can relate with it. So, I thought what I will do is, maybe you can just move on to the next slide, please. as Rita ji also mentioned in terms of my background, I have a very interdisciplinary background, which is, I think, divine's way of preparing me intellectually to be open to all these new fields of studies that I'm eventually getting interested in. So, from an educational perspective, there are many writings of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and in one writing he speaks of 3 key principles of true teaching. And one of the principles is from near to far. Start from near, from where you are, and then go far. Makes so much perfect sense. We worry about Russia and Ukraine, and we can't even solve conflict within our own families, right? So start from near to far and build your intellectual capacity to address bigger situations. So taking that principle as my starting point, I thought, why not just take the title of my talk itself and break it into different words. What is decolonize? What does that mean? Anybody wants to hear that nice music? Tera mera pyar amar. That's what the song is. Huh? Silence. Wow. Everything okay?
Make it silent.
I hope everything is okay. Okay. So, taking that principle from near to far, start with the title of the talk. What does decolonize mean? What does India mean? What does culture mean? And if we have time, we can also talk about study. I'll at least like to deconstruct 2 or 3 of these words. So why the word decolonize? What does this mean?
Possible to make it silent.
So, are we not free? All our textbooks tell us we got freedom in 1947. We got decolonized in 1947, right? So why are we talking about in 2024? And I'm not the only one. I actually remember very clearly the first time I came across this word, and I was sitting at an airport in the US, that I don't remember which airport it was, and I was reading a book by a woman of Australian origin, but not of the Australian that we think as, white Australian or Caucasian Australian, but somebody from the Aboriginal background. And she had written, that was my first introduction to this idea of decolonizing research. At that time I was deep into research, teaching research methodology. So what does this mean, the word decolonizing mean? Can anybody share some thoughts on that? And if you have heard this term, how many of you have heard this word, decolonizing? From the students? Professors, I know they would have. From the students you have? You have? You were half raising your hand? Huh? Do you know what this means? Not post-colonial. I'm not talking about post-colonial because English literature people may know that. Decolonial or decolonizing.
Some people are control other people's controls. A worker or something.
Okay. So that's like a political control or what kind of control? Political control. So in 1947 we became politically free. Are we free in our mind? Why are we not free? Because we are conditioned by what? By some ways of thinking, right? By some ways of looking at the world, right? So that means we are totally not free in our ways of thinking. We are not free in our way of looking at what life is, what's the meaning of life. Please take a seat. Please take your seats. Yeah? So the idea of decolonizing means to start the process of unconditioning in your mind so that you can know what is the origin, what is the source of the way you begin to look at the world. the way you begin to see your life, your place in the world, the purpose of your life, and the purpose of everything that you are doing. Study, for example, your education. What is the purpose of your education? Why are you in college? Why are you in college? Anybody can tell me? Why are we here? Right? Why are you in college? Be very honest. There is no wrong answer here. Start from near to far. Start from ourselves. Sorry. To learn something. Are you sure?
Yes.
Not to get a degree? Also. Let's be honest. Right? We are here also to get a degree. Why?
To get a job.
To get a job. Right? To lead a good life. To lead a good life. So we have made an assumption that once we have a degree, once we get a good job, we will have a good life. Right? This is an assumption that we have in our mind. The process of decolonizing would mean, maybe what if this assumption is not true? Can there be another definition of why am I here? You said in the first answer, in your first response, to learn something. Right? So maybe that's a good aim of education. But how many times we keep that in mind and we forget the other more tangible aims, which is to get a degree, clear the exam, get a degree and then move on, right? But what if I were to tell you the very purpose of education is what in India we'd say, the education is that which helps you become completely liberated, completely free. If I put that statement as the goal of education, would you agree? Yes? No? Huh? Not yet? Right? Because we haven't been told that. And this is the problem with when our minds get colonized. We forget that in our own culture, in our own tradition, we may have a very different understanding of the aim of education itself. Right? We think education is supposed to make us giving, all these degrees and this and that. We can add all these initials to our names. But maybe our culture also tells us education is that which essentially makes you more humble. That's again a very opposite understanding of education, right? So the whole process, I don't want to go into philosophies of education, but the whole idea is, this is the work of decolonizing. When we start thinking about what we are, whatever we are doing at this point in life, in a more Indian way. How would we do that? For that we have to first understand what India means. How many of you can tell me what is the meaning of India? Or what does India mean to you? What does India mean to you? Huh? Country. India means country. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. How many of you can recognize this place which I have put out as a picture? Very deliberately. This is also India. Let's see how many of us know India. Can anybody recognize what this place is? Huh? Ellora. Very good. Very good. Where is Ellora? Where is Ellora? Which state? Maharashtra. Maharashtra, right in the middle of the country. And what is unique about this place? This particular temple? Actually, yeah, okay, tell me, since you know what is unique about this? You don't know. Anybody else? Ellora is a set of caves. It's a, no, these are rock cut cave temples. But this is actually not a temple, Kailasa temple. This is not actually a temple. We call it a temple because it is a temple. It's like you can walk into it. That's me standing there. So can you imagine how big that one stupa might be? But this is actually a sculpture because it was carved like a sculpture. So imagine there is one huge big rock, a mountain actually, and you are supposed to make a temple from it. not a sculpture, you are asked to make a temple, and you dug out, you start digging out pieces of rock from it, and you start from the top, not from the foundation. So this was sculpted from top to bottom. They say it took about 100 years to complete this, and it's a 2-story temple which actually is a piece of sculpture because it is made out of one rock, one mountain carved from top to bottom. Right? This is just one of the thousands of examples of Indian genius out there. In our own neighborhood, we have the Brihadeshwara temple, Tanjavur, which around so many kilometers around there was no place that kind of stone was available, and yet they were able to build it 1,000 years ago. Right? So to know India means to develop an appreciation for everything that is there in our land. Right? Then it connects to culture also, because this is a living example of our culture. Can we move on to the next one? So let's start with India. Let's start with the word nation itself. Somebody said India means country. Fine. So country means a piece of land, right? Geography, from Himalayas to Kanyakumari and from east to west, kind of a thing, right? But that is what all the textbooks tell us, but that's just one very outer way of looking at our country. Sri Aurobindo speaks of country as mother, country as divine, country as a goddess, right? So when we start to think about our nation like that, we develop a different relation with her. And I'm deliberately saying her, it is not it. India is a she, India is a goddess. But Sri Aurobindo says all nations have some inherent goddess in them. It is for the people of that nation to discover the identity of that goddess. So when we start thinking like that, we develop a very new relation with our motherland. Right? And in that process, the decolonizing process begins. It's not only my journey, it's the journey of many of us who have been drawn to Sri Aurobindo's work. So it's not a piece of earth, she's a power, she's a godhead, she's a divinity. And then he explains this in a very beautiful way by looking at a human body. When we look at ourselves, we only see the outer body, right? There is Gayatri, there is Rita, there are two separate outer bodies. There is me, there is Narendraji, there is Vinuji, and so on. This is what we ordinarily understand as the outer gross body. Sthul Sharira is the term in India. That sthul means very gross, very outer, very physical. Nation also has that body. Nation, the geography, from Kanyakumari to Himalayas and from wherever to wherever, right? Depending on how we want to define geography. That is the part of the outer body of a nation. But within all our outer bodies, there is some kind of a prana, life in us, right? Which makes us alive. Otherwise, we would be a piece of matter, right? So there is something that is alive in us, isn't it? We are living, right? So that is also part of the gross body, this outer body of the nation. And what is the life element in a nation? All of us. We the people, right? We are there. That is the meaning of India in some sense, right? So that makes the outer body of a nation. The land, the geography, the rivers, the mountains, the nature, everything, plus the people who animate, who are living in that land. But is that all there is to India? We just saw one example, one out of thousands, many, many thousands. So then comes the second part, the subtle body of a nation. What is this subtle body in us? When we look at ourselves, what are subtle things that we don't see? We didn't know. We had been looking at him for at least, 1 hour. We didn't know what was hidden in him. something subtle, the inspiration that he was feeling, the writing that he was able to do impromptu, right? The thoughts that were coming up in his mind, the feelings that were stirring up in his heart as he was listening to Gayatri. All that is subtle, you don't see outside. When we saw Kritika, we didn't know she had this love for marigold, but it was there in her. It is part of her. So a nation also has that subtle body. What do you include in the subtle body? Her entire culture, her entire civilization, her entire thoughts, philosophies, creativity, everything that she has been able to produce. That is what makes the nation nation also. Right? Yes or no? Yes. Yeah? So it's not that India is a republic with whatever 50 states now or 49 and how many union territories with so many languages and dialects. That is just statistics. But everything, all the subtle creativity that is there is part of India. If we don't love that, we don't love India. This is very true. And then the story doesn't end there also. Underneath even this subtle body, I'm just taking you as an example, sir, please don't mind. He was the only one, while listening to Gayatri, he started, there were certain things were going on in him which came out as in this beautiful expression, right? All of us were listening. We probably were having different responses, different ways in which we were understanding what she was sharing. Why was it different? Because there is something even deeper which is unique to each one of us, which is called the temperament. That is what Sri Aurobindo speaks about as causal body, the cause. Why India was able to produce Ellora and Tanjavur and so many other things? Because there is something in India's temperament which could allow all this creativity to come. There is something in his temperament which allowed that expression to come, which is unique to him. Your college is famous for this beautiful garden, right? First time Gayatri and I came here, Dr. Tgasc showed us around the beautiful gardens that are there and all that stuff. You go and look at any tree. Any of these trees, no two leaves are ever alike. Ever. Because nature does not like uniformity. This is true. Nature always experiments with infinite diversity. Same tree, no two leaves are ever alike. No two human beings are ever alike. Even though we are all Indians, we love our motherland, but there is something unique in each one of us, which is the cause of our creativity. Nation, it is true for nations also. No two nations are ever alike. We are all human family, we are all, love everyone and everything, that is all good. But don't bury our differences. Differences do not make us higher or lower, they just make us unique. So there is an Indian type. Young people like to talk about, when they are out hoping to make girlfriends and boyfriends, she's not my type, he's not my type. So there is something in them that makes them look for their type, even without being aware of what that is. So there is something called type, which has a truth in it. There is a national type also. There is an Indian cultural type, there is a Japanese type, there is an American type. It does not mean that all Americans will behave like that, or all Indians will behave like that. But there is something unique about that. Our job is to find that, because even underneath that uniqueness, there is some other thing which is actually just one. So behind American type, Japanese type, German type, Indian type, there is one source, single source, which expresses itself in all these different types. So you see, when I say this, we are actually, okay, let me give you another simple example. We are celebrating Onam, right? So Onam, most people know the story. the story behind Onam? There is something called 3 strides of Vishnu, right? 3 steps of Vishnu. Anybody who doesn't know the story? Anybody who does not know the story? Okay, then if you don't know, you should discover it, because that is part of discovering India, part of decolonizing project. But anyway, so the story involves Vishnu coming to meet this king Bali, and he takes 3 steps, right? Now, everybody knows the story in a religious sort of way. And there is one simple statement of Sri Aurobindo. Why I say that he is my teacher in helping this decolonizing journey. He said at one casual, it's like one of aphorisms, it's not even a big book, he's written volumes of books. He talks about what is the meaning of these 3 steps of Vishnu. The first is the unity of the family, the first step. The second step is unity of the nation. And the third step is unity of humanity. Simple statement, but deep philosophy hidden in that. First, we have to be united in our own family, in our own community, smaller unity. Only when we accomplish that, we can worry about national unity. Only when we have accomplished that, we can worry about human unity. But what happens is, our, so many times our education and our politicians also, and our thought leaders, our social media influencers, all these people that we listen to, they tell us, you must have an opinion on Ukraine and Russia. You must have an opinion on Israel-Palestine, right? You must take sides. I don't know if people here are in both the colleges know, but if you look at bigger campuses in Delhi, Mumbai, many other places in the country as well as abroad, there are major debates going on university campuses about these world conflicts. While in their own homes, they might not be talking to their own parents on a very friendly terms. So, when we try to take a step beyond this immediate steps, we actually end up creating more problems, right? So these are different ways to understand nation also. We have to start, sometimes it is good to start from the outside, but always remember that outside is only one part of it, right? When you walk into an office, what is the first thing we often see? How clean it is, how well organized is it, And when that is there, we feel good. Okay, यहाँ काम हो सकता है. We can get our work done because there is comfortable chair, there is nice clean table and everything. That is true with the nation also. When we keep our outer nation clean, we start the inner process also of cleaning, right? So think of India in these 4 ways, 4 bodies. Gross body, subtle body, causal body, and behind causal body, what is that one source, which is common to all, because that's where the world unity lies. But don't ignore the other 3. If you ignore your outer body, you won't be able to worry about Ukraine and Russia, right? So keep that in mind, keep this order in mind. We move on to the next one. So you see, when we start thinking like this, our own definition of nation begins to change. Another place he talks about, in Indian thought, we've never thought of nation as the final resting point. Beyond nation is humanity. Beyond humanity is entire existence. Why leave cats and dogs and all the other creatures outside? So all existence is part of one whole unity. This is what Indian thought teaches us. And if we are not taught this in our schools and colleges, it is a big disservice we are doing to ourselves and to our future generations. And I will be very honest in saying, in all my education, in some of the premium institutions in India, we were never taught to look at India in an Indian way. because all our curriculum has been from a colonial side. Whether it is the unity of India, the caste problem, all of that. We were never even told that the word caste has no basis in any Indian language. Even the word religion has no basis in any Indian language. But we think of it, the entire country is burned just on these two words. Right? So we have to start asking this question. What is the origin of the word caste? Is this part of my Indian experience that I know? Where did it come from? What does the word religion mean? All these things. What is the equivalent word in my language? Which may have something similar to what we today know as religion. All these questions are very difficult because they shake you from inside. Right? That all my learning was useless. But that is the journey of decolonizing. Okay, move on to the next, please. So we come to then culture. Is it making sense what I'm sharing? Yeah? Okay, so culture. What does culture mean? What does culture mean? I was admiring Lily Ma'am's sari, part of culture. I like my sari, part of culture. The moment she sat in the car, Gayatri, oh, this is a South Indian, South silk I bought in Kolkata. Part of culture. But what else is culture? Is this all? We just had Jolu Bhara Sandesh and Samosa. Is that all there is to culture? Anything else we are missing?
Robust framework on belief,
Yes.
way of thinking,
Yes.
and to our history,
Yes.
more and more multi-dimensions. We can come out in proportion to the depth of the mind.
Yes.
We can coin the definitions of the word culture.
True. Absolutely true. Anything from the students? What if I tell you there is no word which actually can be translated as culture in India, in Indian language? I'm sorry, I don't know too much. I just know maybe 5-7 words in Tamil, but I don't know what is the word that comes closest in Tamil. But in Sanskrit there is a word called Sanskriti, which is often
It is
Kalachar.
Okay.
And Kala, Kalacharam, right?
That is Panpadu. Kalacharam is heritage.
Kalacharam is heritage. Okay. So Kalacharam, but very interesting how this word is, because that actually also does not mean culture from Sri Aurobindo's perspective. I'll come to that. But let me, since I know the word Sanskriti a little bit better, let me deconstruct that. So Samskriti, this is a word in English, in Sanskrit, Hindi, many other Sanskrit-inspired languages in India. I think Marathi also has that Samskriti or something. Anyway, what that? Samskar. Samskaram is a word in Tamil also, no? The rituals.
Samskriti is culture. Samskaram is the practices that
Of the culture.
under culture.
Yes, so all these have the same root. Even the word Sanskrit has the same root. The root is sam and krit. There are two roots. Sam means, what does sam mean? S-U-M in English. You've all studied maths to some grade. What does sam mean? S-U-M. In English, add, right? So when you add, you do totaling, right? You bring things together. So sum actually in that sense means everything together, totality of everything, right? Do your sums means bring everything together. So sum means total, everything complete. And krit means something that has been created, something that has been inspiredly created, inspired and created. So the one that has been created to perfection, to completeness, is culture. When we say a person is cultured, that means he or she has been created to his or her potential perfection. Imagine when we start looking at culture that way. What is inherent in us, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, if I am able to express all that to its perfection. Everything that I am capable of knowing, capable of expressing, whether it is poetry or mathematical equations, solving mathematical equations, or creating amazing coding work, or doing this amazing, I don't know, sociological theories, whatever it is. The expressions can be many. But when we are able to do it to its perfection, we have arrived at a certain degree of culturedness. So Sri Aurobindo speaks about culture in that respect, that it's an expression of consciousness of life which expresses itself, which manifests, which comes out in three forms, in three aspects. And in the previous slide I was talking about nation also in three ways: gross, subtle and causal. So this time I am going to start with the most inward, the causal, the very internal one. So just to kind of switch the order. And the three aspects are the way we understand our human experience. There is body, mind and something other than mind, which ordinarily we call as soul. Is there anyone in the room who does not believe in soul? Anyone? Again, no wrong answers. But there is something, we don't know what soul is, but we think that there is something other than our mind. Right? Because when I was 5 years old, I still had a different body and a different mind, but there was something that knew that there is this little 5-year-old out there, right? And now that I am not 5 anymore, there is still something in me that can detach and see that there is this outer, not 5-year-old anymore. Right? So let's just call that as soul for now. Since we don't know what soul is. Has anyone seen their soul? So we don't know. But we somehow believe. Right? Okay? So there is a soul of a culture also. Okay? And interestingly, it is that invisible soul which has led everything that we see outside in India. And the mind and body have tried to play catch up. There are many examples, but for the lack of time, I will not go into that. Move on to the next one, because I want to talk about the soul a little bit. What is the soul of a culture? And Sri Aurobindo is very compassionate for us. He knows how non-smart we are, so he breaks down things for us. He has given us 4 words to understand the soul of a culture. And this, by the way, is true for any culture. You can study any culture using these parameters. The thought of a culture, ideal, upward will, soul's aspiration. And what is very interesting is, you can actually even use this as a matchmaking criteria when you are looking for a potential life partner. I am telling you this. What is the thought process of the person? What is the ideal that the person believes in? What is the upward will of the person? And what is the soul's aspiration of the person? So a minute ago I asked, is there anyone who does not believe in soul? Nobody raised their hand. Let me get more controversial. Is there anyone who does not believe in God? You don't believe in God? Okay. Okay, no problem. But do you believe that there is some energy, some intelligence, some wisdom, some power, which is the source of all that we see, or all that we are? Something is there, right? Some call it X, Y, Z, right? That is a thought, right? Ideal is a step higher. You know, all the study that I have done, let's say you have studied some scriptures, that's because you have to now take one step to convert your thought into an ideal. Everything that I have read, everything that my parents or grandparents have told me, it seems there is truth in that. So I'm going to hold on to that as my ideal in life. that there is some divine intelligence. I have a feeling that there may be, but since I have been given this ideal, I am going to hold on to that ideal. That is one step improvement. Right? So you hold on to that and you say, I will arrange my life so that I can live up to that ideal. You can apply this in any situation. For example, if you are interested in doing good for the country, doing good for society, initially there is a thought, hey, what the heck am I doing with my life? Let me do something nice for the world, for the society, for my own village, for my own city. Right? So that's a thought. Then you convert it into an ideal, that I must do something. Right? So far, so good. But ideals are not going to take us anywhere. We also have to put it into action. And that's where will comes in, willpower. Upward will to do better and better. If there is divine intelligence, if there is divine wisdom, how badly do I want to know that? That's the upward will. If I want to do good for the society, how much effort I am going to put in to convert into action? To actually do it, that is upward will. And finally is the soul's aspiration. Do I really, that X invisible element in it, is it going to be only satisfied when it actually does it and accomplishes it? When we start to use this as a criteria, this is how we begin to understand the soul of a culture. What are the people's thoughts, highest thoughts? What are the ideals they are trying to live with? Towards what they put their highest effort, upward will? And what is their inmost aspiration? So in 1905, Sri Aurobindo wrote a letter to his wife. Yeah, and he talked about that you have married a mad person. He wrote it in Bengali. Madness, the Bengali word is some other word. So, but it's got translated into English. And it was a personal letter, but it became public because Britishers possessed it. I mean, they took it as part of the evidence and they actually used it in the court that, look, he's a mad person. So, because he was calling himself a mad, he said, I have 3 madnesses. And one of his madness was this: if there is a God, if he was like you, he didn't believe. Good, Indians are not believers. Indians ask questions. This is part of our temperament. We must ask questions. We must never believe whatever parents or teachers tell us. Actually true. I'm sorry with all the teachers around, but that's the point. That's the whole point of decolonizing, because we have accepted everything without questioning. Okay, so if there is God, I want to see Him. I want to meet Him. I want to know Him. He said, this is one of my madnesses. Imagine this. That is soul's aspiration. That's not a thought, not just even an ideal, not an upward will. That is the soul's deepest desire. Right? That's how you identify the soul of a culture. Can we move on to next, please? Then, I don't want to leave the soul hanging. Soul has to express itself out. Soul expresses in mind and body. And in the mind, again, Sri Aurobindo speaks of 4 different things. How do we know what is the mind of a culture? By the way, again I'm reminding, apply this to yourself individually. Everything will make sense. What is the mind of a culture? The creative self-expression. Whether it is the temples, whether it is the sculptures, paintings, art, music, dance, poetry, whatever, sciences, in various ways that it has creatively expressed itself. Appreciative aesthetics. All these great people made all these temples and architects and everything around. But what if majority of us who are not capable to do that, but we don't even have ability to appreciate it? We don't understand what is the value of that. That is living like animal, right? And this is exactly, there is one Subhashitam, it's called, one like a verse in one of the texts which says, someone who does not have an appreciation of music, art, culture, poetry, all these things is no worse than an animal. And then this is written by Bhartrihari, one of the great kings. He said, the verse says, the only good thing is they are animals without tail. And another good thing is they don't eat grass. Because if they were also eating grass, there would be nothing left for the actual animals, right? But the point is, it's living like an animal. If we don't develop this appreciation of all the beauty, all the, creativity around us, then there has to be intelligence. We should not only look at just, what we have seen in a very unobservant or unquestioning way, but have intelligence to appreciate it. It's the intelligence which led us to tell, which led us to come up with a word called Bhugol. Long time back, much before the West knew that Earth is round, we knew. How did we know? The oldest surgical instruments in the world, which were developed in India, had all beaks. Their shapes were similar to the various beaks of the birds. How did they know? How were they able to do that? Through intelligence, right? The astronomical knowledge that we had. And then there is imagination, whether it is poetry, whether it is stories, whether it is, beautiful dreams that we all do. That is part of the mind of the culture. So all of this, art, poetry, literature, science. And finally is the outer body. How do we organize our outer lives? The practical, the sociological, the economic structures, the political. So since we did not have this thing called caste, we had something called varna, we had something called jati, we had something called shreni, we had something called, I'm forgetting the Indian word for it, something which is similar to guilds, the apprenticeship models. Everything that we did to organize our outer life. And everything that we continue to do today, all that is the outer body of a culture. Right? So if you start looking at culture in this way, your mind begins to really broaden and expand. Can we move on to the next one? So what we need to remember is that at the base of all this great creativity that we've had in our culture are three main motives, three main inspiration, which have this key characteristic. They are spiritual, intuitive, and psychic. There are three different words. We usually think of spirituality all as one. But spiritual is something beyond the planes of our body, mind, higher realms. Intuitive, that is an inspiration that comes from above. And psychic is deep inside the heart. Because in India, we have been very, our ancestors have been very clear what is true within. The truth within is also the truth outside. Or what is in the microcosm, in us, is also outside. There is no separation at some deep, higher spiritual level. But at the level in which we operate, we see separation. And that's the beauty of it, but that's also the challenge of it. Right? But at the base is spiritual, intuitive, and psychic. So he felt some stirring within, and that psychic expression came out. Gayatri felt some intuitive and psychic stirring within, and hence the idea of bringing all these writers together to create that home anthology during COVID time, when there was such a dry slogan out there, stay home, stay safe. But from that, creative, through the intuitive and psychic inspiration, something creative came up, right? So at the base of all this is these three things, but this does not mean that we have neglected outside. Never believe anyone who says India was only good in, spirituality. No, which is again a colonial thing that has been imposed on us. India had great leaders, great kings, great queens, great social structures, great political structures, great political empires. We knew how to conquer the world within and conquer the world outside. We knew that, but we didn't have to kill unnecessarily. Our aim was mostly to conquer the world through culture, which is why to this day, there is unknowingly people say India will be Jagat Guru, India will be spiritual guru of the world. Because this idea has been there implanted in humanity. When Alexander came, he did not just come to conquer the land, he also knew that there is something more to this land, right? So the idea that we are destined to be gurus of the world is deep planted in human imagination, human intelligence. When that happens, we'll see. Maybe not our lifetimes, but it will happen, right? Can we move on to the next?
I just wanted you to just tell a little bit about this.
Yes. So I don't know if anybody knows what this place is.
Is it Gujarat?
Yes, this is in Gujarat.
Rani Ki Vav, Rani Ki Vav.
No, this is actually Adalaj. This is a step well. So see, we didn't only build great temples. This is a step well which is a very beautiful water tank, right? And in fact, I wrote a little blog, something when I travel across the road and in my own home, those ugly black water tanks, or pink or yellow now. And then this is what our ancestors did. They stored water in tanks like this. This is just outside of Ahmedabad. Rani Ki Vav is even much more elaborate than that. Can you just go to the previous slide? I forgot to.
No,
So the one previous one?
This is Rani Ki Vav.
This is Rani Ki Vav. This is one panel of Rani Ki Vav. This is also in Gujarat. This is called, Rani is queen, Vav is the word for step well. So India had a great, amazing hydro engineering knowledge. So step wells were just one part of it. So this structure, Rani Ki Vav, is an inverted temple. It is built in the opposite way. So the shikhar, the top of the temple is down, and then on the top is, this thing. That's why it got preserved. It didn't got destroyed much. So it's just one small panel. And by the way, this is in a village called Patan in Gujarat. And on many of these sculptures, you will see beautiful borders sculpted, and few hundred meters or maybe few kilometers from this Rani Ki Vav are a very small group of weavers left who actually weave Patan Patola saris. Many of the women may know. These are saris that start from minimum, I think, 2 to 3 lakhs, because even a small handkerchief takes about 1 month to weave. And there is no reverse and back. I mean, it is so beautiful, so fine silk. The designs, you can find that in the same structure. So the continuity, that's another aspect of Indian culture. Like I said, this could be a lifetime of study. Continuity is another part. Same thing that was there 2000 years ago or 1500 years ago when this structure was built. The weavers are still using the same pattern to weave saris. So yeah. Okay, we can move on. So yes, so now that we know all this, we cannot be satisfied by knowing that we were so good. Let's just pat ourselves and say we are descendants of this great culture. That's not going to do it. We ourselves have to be part of the work for a rebirth of this great country and this great culture. So that is why Sri Aurobindo's main work on Indian culture is titled The Renaissance in India. And that's the journal that we work with. The Renaissance, the rebirth, the rejuvenation. So what is it that we can do to be part of this India's rebirth? There are many things. But one thing that I've picked out today, I'm just going to read out the whole thing because it connects with all the youth and young at heart, all of us. Our first necessity, Sri Aurobindo says, if India is to survive and do her, because it's a goddess, her appointed work in the world, gods have works, goddesses have works, India has work to be the spiritual leader of the world, is that the youth of India should learn to think on all subjects, to think independently, fruitfully, going to the heart of things, not stopped by their surface. Think, think, and think. The moment we stop thinking, the moment we stop questioning, others will tell us what it means to be not just them, what it means to be you. And that is very dangerous. And we have allowed that to happen for last several centuries. Even after independence, I am sorry to say, we have left our educational system, our curriculum completely colonized. So, not to deny that there have been great poets who have written, Indian writing in English, but much before Ezekiel came to be known as that, Sri Aurobindo was writing thousands of poems in English. But Sri Aurobindo's name as Indian writer in English appears in very few universities around the world. His first poem in English was written at the age of 11, which was a copy, he said, of, inspired by Shelley. Still, the point is that he'd been writing poetry in English, since 83, I think. So it was called The Light. Light, just light, not the light, light. So the point is, think, ask questions, and think originally, think independently. Can we move on to the next, and then I'll close, please? So, now that we know all this, what do we have to do to bring back and manifest, express India's soul? Try to get in touch with our own soul. Try to work this exercise. What is my highest thought? What is my ideal? What is my upward will? What is my deep-seated soul's aspiration? The more you get in touch with your truth within, the more you will experience and feel for yourself the truth of your country. This is exactly the key Sri Aurobindo has given everyone who has come close to their writings. So instead of doing this great social work outside, first try to get in touch with your truth within. And mother who was the spiritual collaborator, she was not born in India. She did not have an Indian body, but she had an Indian soul. She talked about what is the best way to serve and to work towards India. She said, overgrow your small egoistic personality and become a worthy child of our mother India. Fulfill your duties with honesty and rectitude, and always keep cheerful and confident with a steady trust in the divine's grace. If we can do even that, that will be progress. Constant cheerfulness, constant honesty, sincerity, and overcoming of our egoistic personality. That's how you begin the process of coming closer to your truth within. Sounds very big, sounds, very big challenge, but we have to start from the first step. Take the first step. You're a student. Look how sincerely you're studying. How sincerely you're understanding the role of education. Education is, degree is important, job is important, good life is important. But is there something more my learning can give me? Right? If my curriculum is not giving me, maybe I go beyond the curriculum. Maybe I find, instead of wasting time, I don't know. I spend time on social media also. Instead of spending way too much time on social media, maybe I can spend half an hour reading something outside the curriculum. Right? So that might be a way to start. So take small steps, start your decolonizing journey. Don't worry, in India we believe in continuity, so we have many lifetimes. But we must start, right? Okay, so with that I want to close. I mean, there is a lot more, but I don't want to go into all that. But if there's any question, quick comment or question, please feel free to ask.
Don't get hurt when they come up with this very technical observation.
Yes.
international language.
Yes.
Why don't we use Hindi or Tamil or Bengali here?
Yeah.
See, to reach the globe,
Yeah.
they are adapted to English.
Yes.
So how to overcome this shortcoming?
Yeah.
This is a very great shortcoming, frailty which we have, which high time we have to overcome.
Yes. Yes. So I was actually thinking about this, that this question might come up. Just as soon as we sat there, because I thought of, what am I going to speak on, and then, yeah. But see, this is where I think decolonizing is different from post-colonial way of looking at things. It does not mean, at least in my book, when I wrote a small paragraph on this, I said, and because I've also lived in the West for 15 years, I studied there, I worked there, I hardly had any Indian friends actually. But I believe decolonizing does not mean going native, in the sense that we have to give up all that we can learn from other places, other cultures. So Sri Aurobindo and Mother are actually a perfect example of that. Sri Aurobindo was born in India. He did not know any native language, not even his mother tongue much, when he went to England to study. His father had given very clear instruction to his caretakers that this boy and his brothers should be kept away from everything Indian. There was no influence of anything Indian in his growing up years. Mother, on the other hand, grew up in the West. She was born in France to an Egyptian mother and a Turkish father. Both atheists, agnostics, non-practicing, but coming from Jewish and Islamic backgrounds. And from the age of 14, she starts seeing certain visions where different masters are coming and teaching her, helping her learn deepest truths of mystery. And one name that comes to her mind, she doesn't name all of these visitors, one name that she comes up, her soul comes up, is Krishna. She did not know anything about India. And this name that comes to her is Krishna. On the other hand, when Sri Aurobindo is growing up, totally removed everything from India, one day he reads, at a very early age, he reads some translation of Upanishads, and he has an experience of the Purusha, the self in the mind. Again, see, there is something the way nature works, because they were being prepared. It does not have to do with which languages. Sri Aurobindo knew Greek, Latin, English, French. Mother spoke French. But it did not matter what language they were reading or understanding the truths. It was what was happening within their souls. Right? So, just taking that as an example, the process of decolonization is not confined only to the outer language. But I'll come to the more practical side of it also. That can happen even when reading something in the English language or French or Latin or whatever is the language that you are comfortable with. But in terms of education here, it is a problem because we are a very diverse country with many, many languages, and because of our colonial baggage, we have accepted the fact, unquestioningly, unthinkingly, that if you can speak English, you are more intelligent than others. Right? If you can write in English, you are more intelligent than others, more capable than others, which is absolutely wrong. Right? Our own Tamil Nadu example, Ramanujan, the great mathematician, he did not know English. He was only the bhakta of Devi Namakal, and he wrote up all these equations, and he said a mathematical equation has no meaning until it reveals to me the heart of the Devi. This is how he was writing about it. But he goes to England and he does all these great work in mathematics. Right? Kumbakonam, there is Shastra University has taken over his house, and it's like now a museum. So it is not confined to, genius is not confined to a language. But in our education, we have done this mistake by creating English medium and other medium, Tamil medium, Hindi medium, Marathi medium. We have done a mistake, and NEP is trying to correct that. That by saying that by up to certain stage, say primary or middle school, every
region should have their own language as the medium of instruction. At the same time, those of us who have been blessed with or cursed with, I don't know, with the baggage of English language, and we have come to appreciate it not just because it is convenient to speak in English, but we have seen the inner beauty of this language. We should not deny that, right? So when Gayatri writes in English or Sri Aurobindo writes in English, they have brought out in their own ways, at their own levels, the truth of the language also. Certainly in case of Sri Aurobindo, it is very true. He has taken English to the level at one point where only Sanskrit was, or maybe some of the great Sangam literature, Tamil was, in expressing the highest spiritual truth. So he has made English into that kind of a language through his expression. So we must also appreciate that, and that could be our way into it. At least for me it is. Right? I don't know enough Sanskrit. I just know very little to get by, to understand few things. But yes, when I read something that he's written in his philosophical text and I try to translate it, some words, certain words he has kept in Sanskrit only. Certain other expressions in any of the Indian languages I know, it makes sense to me. So for example, the other day Narendra ji and I were talking about the word mythology. Myth comes from mythos, the English, the Greek. But there is an equivalent word in Indian language, mithya, which is not the root of mythology, which means falsehood, false. But there is another word in Punjabi and in many other Sanskrit-inspired language, which is called mathna, which means churning, right? So churning has a connection with the word mythology. Falsehood doesn't have a connection. So yet, there can be so many ways to work around this journey. I am saying do not deny what has happened. It has happened, it has happened. Walk from here. Take the best from the best. Let's not forget that, because it's not about going back in the past. That is a big mistake. We are not talking about revival. We are talking about rebirth. Keeping the spirit, bringing new forms. Because we can't go back ever in time. That's a big mistake, right?
But people who shine presently and people who shone in the past adapted European influences for acquiring knowledge in a very enormous degree. You are an example for that.
Yeah, so actually and don't mind, I'm saying this in an educational institution. It is not about this institution, I'm saying this. I went to Sri Ram College of Commerce, one of the best colleges in India for commerce and economics. Worst 3 years of my life. Worst 3 years. None of the professors even showed up in class. I went to Delhi School of Economics. Some good experiences, but a lot of ratification. Lot of rote memory still. Best professor in econometrics, genius. But he could never explain how to apply econometrics in anything to do with his life. Anything to do with our lives. Big problem in our education, right? So all this is why I'm saying this, because this was the education that I was given. I go to the US, everything that I knew was useless, because there the very first assignment was, we are not going to teach you, write a paper. And I had no idea how to write a paper. Find your own sources, go, spend time in the library. This is, I'm talking 94, 93, 94. We still had the index cards. There was no Googling. We had to go through the index cards. There was no electronic databases. And write a 2,000 word paper or a 5,000 word paper on this or that topic. That's how you learn. When you are forced to dig and find your own thing. Find your own answers. Great debates in classrooms. Sometimes classes only had 5 students. Imagine the kind of one-to-one interaction that was happening with the teachers. So what I'm saying is I'm very, very grateful for all the good education, experience that I had in the West. And for that, we have to give credit to where Western universities have been able to do it. Now the question is, did India ever have that? Yes. we had this kind of scholarship, scholarly culture. Our universities are in, Nalanda, Takshashila, Vikramshila, Ujjain, so many places. We not only had universities, we had assemblies, we had viharas, we had yearly conferences that were happening. People from all over the world. In one of the Upanishads, there is a beautiful mention of how these sabhas used to happen. Women and men scholars used to come and debate and discuss. So conferences, assemblies, all this was happening. Something happened that we forgot all that. That we have to bring back in spirit in a new form. Right? The West took it. They are still keeping it. If you start digging your research, Harvard, all the Ivy League universities, their money has come from the loot of India. Rhodes Scholarship, Oxford, all of this. It is a very painful research, painful journey, but we have to do it if we have to come to our own truth. As a country, as a culture, as a citizen, as an individual.
Hit back.
Huh?
We need to hit back.
Not hit back in a violent sort of way, but to take back what is ours and express it in a new way. Bring that culture back, learn from them and bring it in our own way. Right? Most of our conferences today are what? It is just a networking opportunity. People are passing, professors are passing cards to each other.
It's a narrow concept, madam. Instead, we can hinge on the concept of globalization. Why to narrow our mindset to a very small territory boundary of decolonization? Let us extend our mental boundary and have our foothold on the concept of globalization. No?
We should. But do we have time? I don't know. No. But this is a very crucial question though. But this is very crucial question. Can I take time?
Yeah, it is endless.
In very quick, I'll tell a story. I'll just tell a story about this, right? So the story is, globalization is not a new idea. It is an idea taken from our own tradition, and we had this thing called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. All our politicians like to quote this, right? But what is the origin of this idea, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means the whole Vasudha, whole earth is one family, right? What is the origin? The origin is in a story in Panchatantra as well as in Hitopadesh. Panchatantra is Vishnu Sharma's compendium of stories that he wrote to teach princes. And it is not a spiritual scripture, it is a practical Niti Shastra is called, policy, strategy. And the story is that there is once some animals are there and one fox comes to this group of animals and she says, I'm so old, give me shelter. And the bird who is living on that tree, the bird says, no, I have very small children, birdlings. I don't know what's the nestlings. So I can't allow a fox to live in the vicinity. So the fox tricks the bird and says, but you see, you are so good, so enlightened, so wise. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. World is whole family. So I am like family only, give me shelter. So the bird allows and the fox starts living in that vicinity and slowly she starts eating one of the chicks, every day. And then suddenly they realize that, oh, this mistake, blunder has happened. So this is what Vishnu Sharma's intention was. And the whole verse which says that if you are narrow-minded, you say this is mine, this is his, this is hers, that is a very narrow way of looking at the world. If you have a very wide mind, wide consciousness, Udar Charita Naam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. If you have a very wide, open consciousness, the whole world is one family. Now see, the trick is, the origin of the story is this. If you are wide-minded, then world is a family. If you are narrow in consciousness, this is mine, that is mine, Lagu Chetasam tu Garna, something like that. They do the counting, they do the manipulation. We tell the world, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Will the world tell us the same thing? If the world is not ready to tell us the same thing, is this wise? Because the fox can eat the little birds, right? So that's why I go back to the definition of culture. The third thing is the practical, social, outward formulation. We can't be stupid outwardly. If we have to preserve our nation, our culture, because we forgot to do that, we had 1,000+ years of colonialism, right? So we can't ignore that. So yes, world is one family. We must work towards globalization, but not the McDonaldization of the world, which is what has happened, right? Blue jeans and McDonald's. I mean, just on ECR, not very far from where I live, there is a new McDonald's coming up. Yeah, huge McDonald's. So we have to walk the fine line. Yeah? Okay, so I hope some of it made sense, but start the journey from wherever you are, from near to far. Yeah? Thank you.
From near to far. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking us along your most intriguing journey of decolonizing the mind. We are incredibly privileged to benefit from the wisdom shared by you. It was truly inspirational to listen to what triggered your decolonizing process. And then, in fact, I was reminded about Mahatma Gandhi's inspiration to start the freedom struggle when he was in South Africa. And it was absolutely fulfilling, soul, mind, and body. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Lily to propose a vote of thanks.
Very good afternoon, all of you. The young leaves rustle vibrantly by the wind that blew from the western skies. But the sunshine that warmed them and rain that cooled their roots are from the western horizon. They continue to draw the sap from the earth, the realm, the India. NAAC says, glorifying our own nation, the motherland, India. The uniqueness of our nation lies in the fact that hundreds and hundreds of saints lived and produced wisdom. And so our nation vibrates more than any other nation of the world. And we, Pondicherrians, having been born unto India, must carry the primordial energy and wisdom till they are fertilized into the exuberance of productivity, creativity, upbuilding. Yes, beautiful platform organized by Department of English. So the very difficult task of proposing vote of thanks. If I forget anyone to thank anyone, please excuse me. Aging, cerebral palsy, gray cells. So excuse me if I miss to thank anyone. So let me thank the organizing committee that has organized a wonderful the creation, which has created a platform that accords the highest priority to the productivity and the upbuilding of culture through the upgraded human competence and the knowledge exposition of high seriousness. This platform comes to us as a rethinking of the assumptions and reinventing of the way in which we are all going to
reverse the cultural gloom, revert the cultural gloom, let everything commonly foregrounds in the long-term strides. Primarily, let me thank the beloved principal, whose centrality of the professional life lies in the fact that he takes judicial pride in nurturing this premier institution by virtue of adapting systems, stability, success, institutional culture, leadership style, workforce for the accomplishment of his vision, being an able administrator of this institution. I thank our beloved Principal Dr. Tgasc, who always rides on the promises of the welfare measure, encourages such collaboration of the learned minds. So I thank you. Secondly, our beloved, humane Dr. Kala, head of the department, who always finds the souls and landscapes to light up the path of knowledge in the lives of the students. Her avowed intention is to carefully coordinate the actions to see green shoots. So I thank our beloved Dr. Kala, HOD of English. Since both of us joined the same year, I am just very freely using Dr. Kala, head of the Department of English. Clear? Head to foot with amity, an exemplary human being, never loses her temper in any occasion. So she is the Indian. She possesses the attribute, unique attribute, the characteristic feature of India, Indian mind, we can say. Thank you, Dr. Kala. Wise people shine like the bright stars of the firmament, always drawing others into the path of righteousness. The chief guest of the day, Meghala Madam and Gayatri Madam, my dear pal, Dr. Nita, flash of brilliance with new ways of thinking. They are here with us. The very presence of them induces the spirit of learning in you and I. The evolution of knowledge has got a push in their hands. They are known for the correct reckoning of ideas, marked with very rare consummate excellence, and they have acquainted us with the refining faculty, culturally resonate, typical Arabindians we see before us, and they put in us the quest for excellence, stating a series of characteristics of how an Indian mind be, through exemplifying through Aurobindo's Renaissance in India. It is prescribed for us. Fortunately for our students, final semester students, it's prescribed for us. The essay? Yeah, Renaissance in India, which states the unique attributes of the Indian mind. Very long series of characteristics. Aurobindo is stating, see, if you are a true Indian, please go refer to it and imbibe those features in your being, in your inner being. Clear? Some of the features I remember, I want to quote here: metaphysical bent of mind, religious instinct, strong and self-discerning eyes for details, stupendous vitality, self-assertion of human spirit, tangent philosophical seriousness, line of spiritual experiences, moral seriousness, intellectual seriousness, linguistic competence, organic strength, infinite variety, artistic resources, verbal combination. He actually brings out the huge compendium evolving the consciousness of Indians.
Really, we are thankful to our chief guests who have come here, making clarion call towards the social action, measures, political scruples. Thank you very much, madam. A long series of talks exemplifying their intellectual prowess. The ideas, new ideas they were clothed. So, spellbinding to us. Dr. Rita, whose mind is full of proportion and propriety. No, our students are not at all hungry. See, such wonderful platform. Out of my 36 years of experience, I tell you, such an intellectual platform I've been experiencing is 2 hours. I don't think in future we'll be able to get. To see the virtuous souls, the noble, with the noble thoughts. Clear, and everyone has high admiration for Rita madam. She deserves everyone's esteem, for she is very sanguine by nature. She is known for her act of kindness, very tender attachment she has, and such a creative writer whom we see in our lifetime in India. See, it is very easy to learn about Aurobindo who is no more, right? But the living legend, it is a pride to us that we are living with her. No, I can say, or my children, or my grandchildren will say, my grandma was a colleague of Dr. Rita. What a pride. That much she has directed her critical thoughts, right? With the huge compendium of her writings. Say now recently published book, the novel, just 4 ages, been recognized, and this been recognized by the art and the architecture department, the director of Kanyakurma. He has demanded the copy. 60 copies are now asked for, right? It's all of you give a big hand. 60 copies of the novel. Shining star of the firmament of knowledge, she is. And our faculty members who has undertaken the arduous, undertaken the arduous journey, our faculty members, towards a historic transition by educating our students, facilitators of knowledge, fortifying the intellectual property. I am very thankful for our faculty members, and my special thanks go to our guests from Pollachi, the faculty of English, Dr. Shekhar and his students from Pollachi. Really great you are. I was throughout yesterday night thinking of you, the zest for learning you have, because the acumen flowed through their mindscape, right? We have grasped and we are going to utilize it in the path of our journey. Clear? We are embarking on the path of the journey of truth and knowledge. So much thankful to you, and you have really illumined the minds of our students. See, they don't move out of this classroom, not even the campus. Let them learn, look at you to travel and acquire the magnificent knowledge. Right? Yeah, we will take them to the lunch. And Sam, thankful to so much for the knowledge you have. You spared your digital devices. Thank you so much, the audio media people. Right? And I thank Almighty. And a special guest, another one, sir. Thank you so much for your enlightening personality. You are such an enlightening personality. Sitting among us. Yeah, thank you one and all.